Wiradjuri man Victor Bartley served in the Vietnam War, wanting to give something to his community. This was despite experiencing racism and segregation growing up in outback New South Wales. What he didn't expect was what his war experience would give to him.
Growing up in Bourke, yes, there was racism. There's racism you could see, there's racism that you couldn't see, but you knew it was there. But once we got in the army, once I got in the army, there was none. Nothing whatsoever. When we got to Vietnam, our uniforms were green, jungle green, but there was never, ever any type of racism because we only had that one colour. That colour was green.
The 74-year-old is now a councillor on the Berkshire. His respected position is a long way from where he lived as a child, with his family in a tent by the train line.
So the train line finished there?
That's where it finished, right there. 3 times a week when the old steam train came to town, it had this enormous light in front of it. It just shined straight through the tent. It was just like daylight. We loved living in things like that.
He said there were different rules for Indigenous children in the 1950s.
We had to go to the doctor to get a medical certificate to say that we were free from any lice, fleas and or communicable diseases. The Aboriginal welfare officer, like they had the power of God over Aboriginal people. They could just come and get you, take you up, put you on the train, send you away. 4 of my siblings over a period of a few years got sent away for wagging school. My parents couldn't do a thing about it. They had to just stand there because if they would have said anything or abused the welfare officer, well then they'd get the police to come.
At 14, Victor left school to work so he could help feed his family. Segregation was a way of life for Indigenous people.
This pub was commonly known as Fitz's or Fitzgerald's. Come 1967, when we were given citizenship rights, a lot of the Aboriginal people weren't allowed to go in here because of the racism that was still ripe within our community. You know, when we were allowed to go in a pub, many of the time they had the police wagon parked there. So when closing time came, straight in the back of the paddy wagon. So all you had to do was have a few beers and they'd classify you as inebriated. And, you know, the law is the law. They took you and there's nothing to do.
Victor was initially rejected from serving in the Vietnam War because of his Aboriginality.
The army sent me the papers for me to join the army. But when I let the army know that I was Aboriginal, they sent me a letter back saying something, dear sir, you are hereby notified that you are exempt from national service under the Flora and Fauna Act. And I said, you beauty. But what am I, kangaroo or a flower?
Victor instead enrolled to join the army. This time he was successful because on his paperwork it stated he was British. His military experience changed his life for the better forever.
I was a Force Scout, little bloke up the front. But I got that job because they said I was the shortest in the section. It'd be easy for me to get through the bamboo and the scrap and everything. I enjoyed that because of me mates with me. We were as one. And we got to know each, you know, the insides of each other's socks, it was like to say. We got that close together. We knew what we were doing. And that's what made us brothers. We were brothers in arms then 51 years ago. We're still brothers in arms. I can honestly say categorically that from day one at Kapuka, the 28th of August, 1968, there was no racism that I seen, heard of or shown to me, because we were starting then to be a part of a wider or bigger unit.
Victor returned to Australia in 1971 and retired from the Army a few years later. He settled in Sydney, where he worked as an Aboriginal liaison officer with the then Department of Social Security. But he also became the first Aboriginal branch president with the RSL, an organisation which once shunned him. By 1997, he was back here in Bourke, partly because of mental health issues after the Vietnam War.
By leaving the city, I am what I am today. The clean air, you know, the fresh air. At night time you can lay down and look up to the sky and you can see from, you know, there to there with all the stars in the middle. And it's so beautiful.
He says his success in life is due to his Army experience.
People can say, oh, yeah, well, you know, there's Victor Bartley. He served his country. I can remember when he wasn't even allowed in the RSL club. I can remember when Aboriginal people were allowed to march, but after the march they weren't allowed to go into the RSL club or the pubs. When I go to schools and I talk to kids, and I always tell them, do not take notice of people who say to you, you can't do that. You can do that, because you are you. And you got your own destiny in your own hands. Take what you want out of life.
A life of service and breaking boundaries.